been 2 years now since I first made a video on YouTube, and since then I've made over 350 of them, and a good 95% of those 350 are shorts. And so, to celebrate 2 years of making content, this video is just a classic top 10 list of my favourite shorts. Number 10 was filmed at Alton Towers, and I quite like making shorts from museums or attractions we go to. It really adds a memory to look back on, and it's also interesting to watch. And the topic is on drugs, joy, and anhedonia. So I also like it because it's a topic that I, as a therapist, have a lot of interest in recovery, and also in theme parks. I also like it because the music shifts towards the end, which isn't typical for most of my content, and makes it a bit amusing.
This short's on drugs and joy, specifically on the lesser-known withdrawal effect from certain drugs like cocaine called anhedonia. Anhedonia being an inability to find joy in things due to a rewiring of the brain's pleasure centres that can last for months, even years after you stopped using. Imagine we go to Alton Towers and you ride on all the best thrill-seeker rides. You've done Oblivion, you've done Nemesis, you've done Wicker Man, and then all of a sudden, after the joy of doing these really exciting rides, I take us to CBeebies Land. We're used to the thrust of Rita or the spin of Smiler. These rides are dull, you can find no stimulation in them. This can be what it's like for addicts in recovery, trying to find joy again in life outside of their substance of choice like cocaine. Anhedonia is not permanent. You will start producing dopamine again.
Number 9 is on a crafting activity, and I've made more videos on crafting than pretty much any other topic. Maybe running and cooking are coming in close second. But this video was making this pen pot that I still use in my office. And I generally came face to face with quite a critical inner narrative that I wasn't really aware of before starting. And if we're not aware of something, then we have very little control to be able to challenge it. So this short genuinely moved me, and I wept actually rewatching it. So it's special sentimentally to me.
I did some porcelain painting this weekend, and as I started doing it, I felt quite wounded by the inner narrative going round in my head. This is stupid. It's for children. You've chosen the wrong colour. Can't even do this simple thing. You've gone outside the lines, you idiot. You're only doing this to make a short. You don't like crafts. Stop wasting your time. Get on with what you should be doing. And maybe this rings a bell for you. Maybe your inner narrative can also at times be cruel and say things that you'd never say to another human being. This weekend gave me a chance to hear that inner narrative that had been bobbling around in the background, but not to believe it, to push through, to keep going, to challenge that voice that can be our own worst enemy, and give myself love.
This next short wasn't filmed in one sitting. It was actually filmed on several trips, taking footage of plants growing out of pavements and walls. The longest short I've ever made was taking pictures of the sunsets, like very short 1 or 2 second clips of the sunset, and that took over a month to film. But the reason I really like this one is because I've got a thing around blame and people being stuck in a position where they're comparing themselves for others or somehow feeling deficient and as though that is their fault. And it just struck me watching these plants growing out of the pavement or out of walls and flourishing to the best of their ability, even when they don't have full range of nourishment that plants in the soil might have.
Life is incredibly resilient. Notice, for example, the plants in this short growing out of cracks in walls or through the pavement. It's not the ideal nutrient-rich soil, and yet it grows. The trouble is that there's not room to dig down roots into cement and pavement, which means that these resilient plants are fragile and easily pulled off a wall. Life's not been easy for you. Other folks have had the luxurious support of the soil, but watered and and the sun shines on them. Meanwhile, you've had to gather what nourishment you can from the concrete. You never chose to be resilient, and yet you're still growing. And look at what you've accomplished. It's easy to compare yourself to the plants in the soil, compare your growth to theirs. It's harder to acknowledge just how well you've done.
Number 7 was filmed at a comic convention for the love of horror. We're actually going to it again this weekend if anyone else is going to it. And I like it because I feel like I'm opening myself up a bit in releasing it and talking about my interest in cosplay or geek culture, and that feels quite intimate. And then the topic itself about finding people that share special interests in you rather than feeling, again, that thing around self blame, rather than feeling as though you are deficient or your interests aren't valid, around connecting with like minded individuals.
Do you have a special interest, hobby, passion, favourite activity, or music that sometimes it feels like it's just you that likes it? This is For the Love of Horror, a convention in Manchester that attracts 10,000 people per year. And yes, horror's fairly popular, but not the kind of thing that comes up in daily conversation. And yet people dress up, cosplay, and enjoy themselves in their love of the genre here. And there are similar conventions for other interests, genres, anime, gaming, all sorts of things. And maybe some of the guests feel alone with their love of horror outside of this. But gatherings of like-minded folks can show us that maybe we don't need to be ashamed or alone.
Number 6 is a cooking video, and cooking has become one of my favourite genres for making shorts on. There's lots of editing and shortening or fast forwarding bits so that it fits within that 58-second time limit I go for. But I like the short because it's talking around grief. This is talking about one theory, Tonkin's model of bereavement, and often people who are grieving will say that they're worried they're going to forget the person, and this model is really saying that we could never forget our attachment figures. They'll always be a part of us, and that's quite special to me. One of the things that first got me into being a counsellor was being involved with Crew's bereavement care, both in their governments but also as a bereavement volunteer. And I think bereavement, again, is another area where people quite often self-blame and feel like they should be grieving better or differently. So it touches my heart, and it was nice to be able to make a piece of content talking around grief theory with cooking.
Dr. Tonkin's growing around the grief, or the fried egg model of bereavement. Imagine you're this egg. Everything's going fine, you're with many other eggs, and then all of a sudden you are struck because of a death, because of bereavement. Your life has been shattered, you've been taken out of the egg box, and the grief that we all represent by the yolk feels all-encompassing, can't see anything else. When you grieve, which we will represent by the fire, it at first seems as though there is only a yolk in this frying pan because the white is invisible, it's not white. And originally Tonkin thought that the process of grieving just means that the yolk gets smaller. But that's not the reality of grief. Rather than the yolk getting smaller, instead, the white grows, our life grows. The yolk, the pain of grief, is always there, it just feels a little bit less big in our lives, it gets triggered less often. Tonkin's model reminds us that we will never get over grief, we never forget our attachment figures, but our grief evolves, and rather than just yolk, we experience the pleasant whiteness of connection with our loved ones. We're into our top 5, and at number 5 I put down the Quadrat challenge. One day, hopefully, it will trend as a TikTok challenge, who knows. Quadrat challenge is effectively using external mindfulness to be more present, but I really enjoyed doing it and paying attention to a very small grid in the room, and I expect I'll keep making a piece of content every month or so on that challenge. I also recently started doing some training in dialectical behavioural therapy, and a big component of DBT is mindfulness. So yeah, I enjoyed
creating it and doing it, but I'm also doing a lot of this in my personal life. So there's something quite magical about just pausing for 10 minutes and staring at a patch of ground.
This is the Quadrat Challenge, designed to make you more mindfully in the moment, appreciating the little things, and to create moments of awe and amazement at the vastness of the world outside of you. All I want you to do is to take some kind of quadrat or a frame, and that might be a professional one that you have bought, or like me, just chopping up a frame from a cereal box. I then want you to place that quadrat somewhere random, maybe throw it on the floor somewhere. And then wherever it's landed, I want you to take special interest to what's inside the frame. I want you to sample it like the ecologists that use quadrats. I want you to be mindfully aware of the little things, the materials, the footsteps that might have been taken on this patch of land, the journeys, the small creatures that call their home there. Reflect on it, maybe make content on it, and be in awe.
Number 4 is the first short that I ever filmed on my phone. It's very minimalist, one take, no subtitles, no text, no stickers, no editing at all, no music, but it's quite precious to me and sentimental because it was the first one I made. It's filmed in South Park, a place where I usually finish most of my runs, and so make a fair few shorts because often the act of running gets my mind thinking, and I quite often produce content after a run. And I really enjoy the topic that I'm covering here, asking if anxiety can be our friend. I almost at times thought that would make a really good book, but I don't know if I have the commitment, the discipline to be able to write one book and keep on one topic rather than bouncing between short form content very much matches my personality, whereas book writing less so. But yeah, the very first short I ever made.
What if anxiety isn't a burden, a heavy weight, or a thing that we need to push away? What if instead it's informing us, helping us, heck, directing us and trying to move us out of difficulty or trouble in our life? Maybe rather than anxiety, panic it can bring in, as uncomfortable as it is, maybe instead of viewing it as something that is painful or hurtful, we might even be able to view it as a friend, something gently trying to guide us and move us from discomfort to a world that's more comfortable, tolerable, bearable for us.
Number 3 really fits with the social model of disability, that it is societal barriers that create disabilities rather than conditions that affect people. And this one's talking about ADHD and how ADHDers would make amazing hunters with traits like vigilance or hyperfocus. I may make another one in the future saying that autists would make amazing shamans in communities. But the music is epic. It involves our cat, Ozzy, who is wonderful to film. And again, it really touches my heart on that topic of self-blame. I work quite a lot with neurodivergence, so I don't know, that touches my heart as well. So this is You Are Not Disordered, You're a Hunter.
I heard the most affirming description of ADHD recently. An ADHDer said, "I am not disordered, I am a hunter." Hypervigilance or hyperactivity isn't a deficiency. I'm on the lookout for prey so that we can eat. And when I spot that ball, I follow it. My hyper-focus is a dedication to pursue what matters. Do not label me disordered because I'm not a farmer. A hunter isn't meant for routine. I do not monotonously dig the soil and wait for plants to grow. I'm out there looking for opportunities, but just because I'm a hunter doesn't mean I do not belong in a village. A community needs all roles. Hunters, farmers, and not to mention our blacksmiths and our bakers. And so ADHD is not a disorder, it's just a difference.
Talking about mental health, most of my shorts are fairly serious. And number 2 is still a serious mental health topic, but it's quite fun talking about ducks as mindful masters, and I had a great deal of fun filming it. So it makes me smile. I think it's a good message. That's my number 2.
Look at these critters. They're not fussed in life, they're not worried, they're just bobbing around, finding bits to eat, eating it up, and having a whale of a time splashing about.
And you might look at them and think, well, sure, that's alright for them. They don't have anything to worry about. People just hop along and chuck bread at them. But they do. They do have things to worry about. There are dogs all the time coming and barking at them. There are people running by the lake. There are loud noises, and it's getting ruddy cold at the moment. Those ducks, geese, and all those other creatures, they have a lot to worry about. But they seem happy as anything. Because ducks, they're mindfulness masters. Dog comes along, they just jump off into the lake. If there's no food, they find food elsewhere. If they're cold, they just fly on away to Canada. They respond to their immediate needs, and that makes life simple for them. My number 1 also is my most popular short I've ever made, with 6 times the views of the average quite successful short. I think the thing that really makes it is the music. Wes Hutchinson is the musician, and there's just wonderful harmonics that creates this beautiful musical piece that almost gives me shudders listening to it. I spend a fair while choosing the music for different shorts, and all of them create a wonderful atmosphere, so I'm grateful for a whole host of different musicians in the YouTube audio library. And this video combines 2 things I very much enjoy in life. The first is coffee, and the second thing is that topic that's come up again and again in this top 10, and that's self-blame. When we're just made for a different grind, there's nothing wrong with us. We're trying to brew Turkish coffee in a cafetiere. There are loads of different ways to make coffee. In our house we have an Italian stovetop for espresso, a French press for filter coffee, and this Turkish coffee pot for Turkish coffee. And none of these machines are superior to any of the others. They just make different types of coffee, and the beans are ground in ways that are particular for each of these 3 different machines. Take this Turkish one, for example. There's no filtering, and it's a really fine grind, compared to the cafetiere, that's a much thicker grind, and most of it's filtered away, resulting in far less dregs. But if I tried to make a Turkish coffee using cafetiere grinds, it would taste awful. Are you trying your damnedest in life, but it feels like you don't fit? Are you a Turkish coffee machine desperately trying to boil cafetiere coffee? Maybe it's time to stop blaming yourself. Your machine was made for a different grind. It still chokes me up a little bit listening to that. 2 years on YouTube, 350 videos, about 150,000 views and 245 subscribers. But beyond all of that, I quite enjoy it. I like the little moments of reflection. I like being able to capture the day, or capture positive thoughts or learnings and turn them into content. And I really like the idea that that might touch people's lives. So if you're thinking about doing the same, thinking about making content, then I really encourage you. It doesn't have to be an in-depth 1-hour video on a complicated topic. It can be just 10, 20, 58 seconds of a short talking about something that's meaningful to you. Because these last 2 years, they sure have been meaningful for me. And I am incredibly grateful for everyone who's followed along on my little journey on YouTube. Thanks.